Many things could be said about that topic, but I will start by reading something from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 28. I read chapter text 51. This is taken from a conversation between Narada Muni and one king whose name was Prachina Bahishat. And
which chapter? 26?
28. And he was engaged in performing some karma kanda sacrifices. And when Narada Muni saw that karma kanda means, of course, sacrifices for material enjoyment, as karma kanda, jnana kanda, and upasana kanda. Three paths described in the Vedic scriptures. One is the path of, as Prabhupada called it, fruitive activity, means activities meant for material enjoyment. And the other one is, that's karma kanda, and then jnana kanda is the path of mental speculation or the search of knowledge. And then finally there's upasana kanda, which is sometimes understood as the path of worship of various gods, but actually the real meaning is the path of devotion to Krishna. So, having observed King Prachina Bahishat being busy in activities meant for material enjoyment, Narada Muni took compassion upon him and instructed him about the futility of such activities. And in order to instruct the king, he tells him a story, the story of the life of King Puranjana, who's actually none other than the king himself, King Prachina Bahishat. But in order to, present it in a palatable way, he's instructing in the form of a story. So it's a long story. It goes over many chapters. And at this point, we have come to a point where King Puranjana actually died. He has already died, but he took birth again as a woman. It happens. We are not women, we are not men. These are simply our external dresses. So that means a man can take birth as a woman can take birth as a man. It's quite possible. And so his or her name, new name, was Vaidehi. I think Vaidehi, yeah. Vaidehi means the daughter of a king named Videha. So after she, King Puranjana, who was now Vaidehi, he got married to a king, a famous king, as I said here. His name was Malaya Dvaja. And but eventually the king died, as it happens to all of us. And at that point, the queen becomes very depressed, and she actually wants to die also. She wants to commit sati, which is a very infamous practice, which was stopped by the British. And there was sometimes a woman who was very faithful. She, not wanting to continue life in the body after her husband died, she would enter the funeral pyre of her husband and commit suicide in that way. And the understanding was that she would join her husband to go with him to his next destination, which was a good thing if the king had, had some good karma and would go to a good destination. So in this way they could go together to a better life. But later it was misused because some miserly people, not wanting to have to take care of the widow, they forced her to enter the fire of her dead husband. So because this was observed, so the British, they forbade this practice. It's quite famous. I remember I heard about this long time before I became a devotee, how this was going on in India in the past, not in recent times. So anyway, this queen, who was formerly King Puranjana, she wanted to enter the fire when her husband's body was being burned. But just at that time, actually a brahmana comes to advise Queen Vaidehi. I just have to come back to the place. Maybe I should do like this. And the reason why I have chosen this verse will, I think, become obvious to you as I read the verse and purport. The Sanskrit sounds like this: Tatra Purvatara Koshchit. You want to see where it is, Lotian, or are you looking for something else?
No, I'm looking for that. Which verse is that?
It is 4th canto, chapter 28, text 51. Tatra Purvatara Koshchit Sakha Brahmana Atmavan Santvayan Valguna Samna Tam Aha Rudatim Prapo. Tatra, in that place, Purvataha, previous, Kaschit, someone, Sakha, friend, Brahmana, a Brahmana, Atmavan, very learned scholar, Satvayan, pacifying, Valguna, by very nice, Samna, mitigating words, tam unto her, aha, he said, Rudatim, while she was crying, Prabhu, my dear king. This is, of course, Narada Muni, as I mentioned, speaking to King Prajinabarhisat. He says, my dear king, one Brahmana, who was an old friend of King Puranjana. In other words, he knew Vaidehi from her previous life when she was Puranjana. He was a friend of her when she was a he in her previous life. My dear king, one Brahmana, who was an old friend of King Puranjana, came to that place and began to pacify the queen with sweet words. Srila Prabhupada says, the appearance of an old friend in the form of a Brahmana is very significant. In his Paramatma feature, Krishna is the old friend of everyone. You remember this was the topic of today, friendship in Krishna consciousness. According to Vedic injunction, Krishna is sitting with the living entity side by side. According to the Shruti mantra, Tvasuparna Sayuja Sakhaya, the Lord is sitting within the heart of every living entity as Surit, the best friend. The Lord is always eager to have the living entity come home, back to Godhead. Sitting with the living entity as witness, the Lord gives him all chances to enjoy himself materially, but whenever there is an opportunity, the Lord gives good counsel and advises the living entity to abandon trying to become happy through material adjustment and instead turn his face toward the Supreme Personality of Godhead and surrender unto him. When one becomes serious to follow the mission of the spiritual master, his resolution is tantamount. Tantamount means the same as seeing, I guess you can say, is tantamount to seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As explained before, this means meeting the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the instruction of the spiritual master. This is technically called Vani Seva. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur states in his Bhagavad Gita commentary on the verse Vyavasayatmika Buddhya Ikeha Kurunandana, Bhagavad Gita 2:41, that one should serve the words of the spiritual master. The disciple must stick to whatever the spiritual master orders. Simply by following on that line, one sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Paramatma, appeared before the queen as a Brahmana. But why didn't he appear in his original form as Sri Krishna? Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur remarks that unless one is very highly elevated in loving the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one cannot see him as he is. Nonetheless, if one sticks to the principles enunciated by the spiritual master, somehow or other he is in association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Since the Lord is in the heart, he can advise a sincere disciple from within. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 10:10. Tesham satata yuktana bhajyatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. In conclusion, if a disciple is very serious to execute the mission of the spiritual master, he immediately associates with the Supreme Personality of Godhead by Vani or Vapu. This is the only secret of success in seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Instead of being eager to see the Lord in some bush of Vrindavan, while at the same time engaging in sense gratification, if one instead sticks to the principle of following the words of the spiritual master, he will see the Supreme Lord without difficulty. Srila Bilvamangala Thakur has therefore said, Bhaktis tvayi stiratara Bhagavan jadishat Dhaivina na palati divya kishora murtihi Mukti swayam mukulitanjali sevate sman Dharmata kama gataya samaya pratikshaha. If I am engaged in devotional service unto you, my dear Lord, then very easily can I perceive your presence everywhere. And as far as liberation is concerned, I think that liberation stands at my door with folded hands, waiting to serve me. And all material conveniences of dharma, religiosity, arma, artha, economic development, and karma, sense gratification, stand with her. That is liberation personified. It's from Krishna Karnamrita 107. If one is very highly advanced in devotional service, he will have no difficulty in seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If one engages in the service of the spiritual master, he not only sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but attains liberation. As far as material conveniences are concerned, they automatically come, just as the maidservants of a queen follow the queen wherever she goes. Liberation is no problem for the pure devotee, and all material conveniences are simply awaiting him at all stages of life. Hare Krishna. So, okay, I'll read the verse again. Tatra purvatara kaschit saka brahmana atmavan santvayan valguna samna tam aha rudatim prabhu. My dear king, one brahmana who was an old friend of King Puranjana came to that place and began to pacify the queen with sweet words. Yeah. So, we all need friends. Otherwise we become lonely. Nobody likes to be lonely. Man is a social animal. Prabhupada also made that as an observation. And the problem is that many times because of the need for some social life, we how to say, we become polluted by bad association. Even I was just a few days, I visited my brother. I have a twin brother.
Maybe the same I saw 86.
Could hardly be. She was in USA in '86, and she thought she saw me there. I said, not possible. I was not in USA.
Because I've been thinking this,
Yeah.
since.
No, but even let us say he had been in USA in '86. We are twins, but we are not similar.
Okay.
So you wouldn't have mistaken him for me. I don't think so. My family say that now as we get older, we are more similar. But if you see, I can show you after a picture. I have it on my phone. It's a very funny picture because it was taken at our confirmation. And, you know, he's one head taller than me. He was so much, it's very peculiar. I show this to many people.
So
Nobody would, now we are about the same height, but at that time we were 14 years old. He was so much ahead of me in his development that, you know. Anyway, I went there we had a 70 years birthday on the 8th of
70.
yeah.
Oh, congratulations.
one year closer to
Yeah, I know.
the relief from this. Well, let's see how much relief it is, but hopefully there will be some, at least it will be not a how you say, it will be an improvement, not the opposite. What is the opposite of improvement? It will not be what is the word? I forgot. Anyway, you know.
Having to come back here again.
Yeah, or at least, you know, or having to come back in some lower species or some very bad situation. So anyway, so we had our birthday today. We had celebrated our birthday together. But the point at which I'm getting to all this small talk is my nephew was also there, and I don't know. I would like to think it's because, you know, some inspiration that he told me he stopped smoking ganja.
The nephew.
Yeah. He's now he's not a boy. He has I think he's 36 now, and so a grown-up man, and he decided he should try a little more sober life. So he said, but I lost 90% of my friends when I stopped smoking ganja, and that's I can very much recognize this scenario because, I mean, when I joined the Hare Krishna movement, I lost all my friends from previous times, but I didn't mind because actually I was tired of them. I wanted to get away from them. I was in this, you know, this what do you call it, predicament, and you know, I needed some friends to be with, but you know, but the only friends I had, they were not of the best kind, and I could see how they were dragging me down. So, but I didn't know anybody else, so it was I was quite suffering because of that.
So how old were you when you came to Krishna consciousness?
I was almost 25.
So almost 50 years now.
Yeah,
45 years.
45 years. Yeah. So that was my predicament, you know. I needed to have some, you know, to have some, you know, some people I could, you know, so associate with, some friends, but you know, this was not. I didn't know anybody that could help me to actually how should I say, live a better life, a more pure life, a more spiritual life. So that was I was quite distressed because of that, and I started praying to God for some help, or how to So I had other problems, but this was a major problem actually. When I look back, I have to admit this was a major problem for me. And I started praying to God, and fortunately Krishna helped me. I didn't know his name was Krishna at that time. I didn't know that actually when I was a kid, I had a picture of Krishna on my wall back in my room. I was a hippie, and we had I think they called them head shops. There was a head shop in Copenhagen where they were set.
What head shop?
Head shop it's called a head shop, a shop where they sell, all this, hippie paraphernalia,
Okay.
psychedelic posters, chillums, and other similar things, like, they have this jackets from Afghanistan. They were very popular in those days. It smelled horrible. Smelled like, the goat. It smelled very strong stench, especially if somebody would go out in the rain with one of these jackets on, and then when they came back, oh,
Yeah, I know.
this. Anyway, that's a head shop. They would also sell Indian posters. So there was in one of in that shop. Yeah, maybe there was, but there was at least one in Copenhagen. Same street where later on they opened a center, Studiestræde. And I bought a small poster of a little blue boy. And, it looked very with peacock feather, and of course it was Krishna, but I didn't know. I never found out. I mean, I was mystified, this, especially what really I thought was really mystical, this color. He had this bluish tint, what do you call it? And I thought, I brought that picture home, I put him on the wall, and I was sitting there, I was smoking ganja, and I was looking at that picture and fantasizing, what kind of Hindu god is this? Very, I had a friend whose smaller brother was a blue child. You know what is a blue child?
Yeah, I heard of it, but
Sometimes if children, they have some heart, weak heart or something, then they get this bluish color because of lack of oxygen, and the little boy he died actually. He didn't live to grow up because he had this problem. So I thought, is this a blue child? He looks quite good otherwise, like kind of, round, full cheeks, and but this color, I was wondering, and I never found out. Only after I joined ISKCON, and then after some years, it dawned upon me, hey, I had a picture of Krishna on the wall hanging back then. I no idea what happened to that picture. It got lost long time before I came in touch with the devotees. So, but anyway, what was the point here anyway? The point was that, that...
Your nephew stopped with Gaura and needs
yeah,
friends.
yeah, the point of, what to do, we need friends, but we find that, it's very hard to find good friends in this world. And but if we actually if we pray to Krishna, then he will help us. And but even in Krishna consciousness, we may also sometimes feel a little lonely. It happens. I've seen this among devotees, that sometimes they have this problem. So that was one reason why I chose to maybe say a little about this today. There was recently one sannyasi in ISKCON. He had to give up his status. He was an old man, but he, sometime before that, he had visited Copenhagen, and he mentioned to my friend Lalita that I don't have any friends.
Is that Prabhupada you're talking about?
No. There's a Prabhupada disciple.
Uh-huh.
And and I've seen other cases, and I can see in myself also that this is important. We need to have friends in Krishna consciousness, and then we come back to the verse that I was reading today, because what is this talking about? It's talking about who is actually our real friend, our original friend. This is Krishna, or Paramatma in this case. As Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, the famous peace formula, Bhuktaram Yagna Tapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Suridam Sarvadehinam Gyatramam Shantim Richati. We need to know only three things if we want to become peaceful and happy. We need to know Krishna, three things about Krishna. That he is the enjoyer of all sacrifices and austerities. He is the proprietor of everything, all of the planets in the universe and everything else. And he is the best well-wishing friend of all living entities. That's we have turned away from Krishna, so he's always ready to reciprocate with us in loving affection, but because we have turned away from him, we have lost the benefit. We deprived ourselves of our real the benefits of having the very best friend that anybody could dream of. We need to work on that. We need to do something to repair that broken relationship. And that's, of course, what Krishna consciousness is all about. And that's the first thing. And the benefit is that if we are doing that, then we shall find also that our relationships with the people around us will also improve. Because what happens is that if we reach out to Krishna, it's said that if we take one step towards Krishna, Krishna will take 10 steps towards us. So even we just do a little bit to give Krishna some good feelings, let us say like that, then Krishna is immediately there and ready to reciprocate in so many ways, in so many wonderful ways, that we will immediately feel happy, and we will realize, yes, it is. I actually have, just like here, this Brahmana appears to Queen Vaidehi, and he's been there all along as Paramatma in the heart, but because she turned away from him, because as Puranjana he turned away from him, therefore the relationship was not broken but forgotten, you can say. But now, at the opportune moment, he appears again and starts, as it is said here, he starts to pacify the queen with sweet words. So that's what happens. That if we actually, even it may not seem to be any big thing, but if we at least, if we do something to make a sincere attempt to reconnect with Krishna, to revive our relationship with him, we will immediately feel reciprocation. And that will give us something which will also improve. How will it improve our relationship? In many ways. But one way is that we will not, we will realize that well, it sounds strange maybe, but we don't need anybody except Krishna. How should I say? The general one problem with friendships in this world is that there's always a big motivation whenever we try to connect with others. We're always expecting to get something in return. I will be your friend, but you'd better, reciprocate my good feelings. Otherwise, we are not friends. I want something from you. That is the reason. That is my reason for reaching out. So, in other words, it's usually always there's a selfish motivation, but that selfish motivation is actually polluting the relationship. Real friendship is based on unselfishness. It's just a willingness to give without expecting anything, just being happy to make others happy. But it's very hard to give up that selfish motivation if we are dependent on others' friendship. If we are how to say, happy within, then we can also take the risk of giving without how to say, even at the risk of not having our good feelings reciprocated. We are never more vulnerable than when we try to love somebody. Because that means we expose ourselves. We become open to being hurt, having our feelings hurt, even physically hurt. So it's a dangerous business. But and if we are dependent on reciprocation, it can become too scary to take that risk, And some people they become very introverted, very reserved, and in this way they try to protect themselves. But the problem is often that they also become lonely. So the point I'm trying to make is that we need friends, but in order to make friends, to establish friendly relationships, we need to have this courage to take the risk of being, turned down, rebuffed. But that courage will be much easier to muster if we are not dependent on anybody's friendship. If we are, if we are happy within and we are getting our inner satisfaction from our eternal friendship with Krishna, then we can also take that risk and be friendly, in plain words. Be friendly with the people around us, knowing that we may not always, get the reciprocation that we would like, or because life is like that. Sometimes, we cannot be sure. I mean, on the whole, it is a fact that if we try to be nice to others, others will also be nice to us. It generally works like that, but not always. Sometimes, you try to be kind, you try to give, but somebody will come and try to exploit. Because this world is like that. It's a very cruel world. And that's just the reality. We need to be realistic and face that reality of life, without becoming cynical, without becoming what is it called? Locking ourselves up and just suffering from become loners. But in Krishna consciousness, Krishna will, if we take up our devotional service and try to give our good feelings to Krishna, that will also help us to overcome that problem. Hare Krishna. Many other things could be said about this, but it's something I thought about.
Can I say something?
Please.
Yeah, well, I mean, when I came to Krishna consciousness and met all these devotees, it was like heaven for me.
Yeah.
So many friendly and nice people. Maybe I didn't get, very close with everybody, but they were always so good, So
Yeah.
my older life was nothing compared to the devotees.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even if you don't have a lot of, nowadays we all get old and, people die and, so it's a lot of young people, but the love you get from the devotees is like so wonderful.
Yeah. That's what keeps us alive, isn't it? I mean, the philosophy is perfect, and prasadam is nice, and but without friends, it becomes difficult. If we don't have,
You don't need.
we should not be in an illusion to we are all devotees, so we will all be the best of friends. We are also individuals, and it's not forbidden to even amongst devotees to search out somebody who you can connect with better. I think it's quite all right to do. And it doesn't mean that we should have enemies among devotees, even those who we may not feel may not feel a strong connection, but we should still try to appreciate them. And a good rule is always to leave a door open, I think. If we try to do our part and at least try our very best to be nice to the people around us. And then if they don't reciprocate, it's essentially not our problem. We can still live with it, as long as we are not motivated. That's one point I wanted to make. Ultimately what really ruins, if you look at it, I think you have to agree, what really ruins friendships is selfish motivation. If we can give that up, then people will feel that also. And they will feel much more comfortable being around us, and much more willing to also, reciprocate our friendly dealings. And well, anyway, I'll tell you one story because it's definitely a fact, you said, and that's why I'm still here, because I found real friends among the devotees. It's what keeps me alive, what keeps me going, and more than anything else, I think, in Krishna consciousness. But I was also challenged at times. I spent some time when I moved into the temple actually here in Sweden. I spent a couple of months in the only Scandinavian temple we had at that time in Korsnäs. But then I was sent back to Denmark to go out and distribute books. And I joined the first Danish traveling Sankirtan party. There had been other parties, of course, in Denmark, but they were not based in Denmark. This was a Danish party. And there was one devotee in that party. He was, to put it nicely, he was quite a challenging person to be around. And on the very first morning when I was with them, we'd been staying overnight in some hostel, and then the first morning he got into an argument with one of the other devotees, and it ended up like a shouting affair. So I thought, what's going on here? I thought devotees, they were so peaceful and you know, they were all friends, but I saw it's not always like that. But I mean, I could understand that this was a test, and I shouldn't just, you know, judge all the devotees on the basis of this one person's behavior. And you know, I shouldn't be naive and think, you know, just because you join a spiritual movement and everything will be just wonderful. Yes, it's wonderful in the absolute sense, but there will be challenges, even when we take to devotional service. But these challenges, we should come up to them, and we should understand the philosophy. And Krishna didn't promise Arjuna that, you know, you just do as I say and there will be no problems. He said, no, problems will be there. There's suffering in this world, it's just like it is. But you have to tolerate. Just tolerate. This is... actually, Lord Chaitanya also said that and that is actually the qualification to be able to chant Hare Krishna constantly. One has to become more tolerant than a tree, more humble than a blade of grass, always ready to give respect to others, and not expecting any respect for oneself. So if we
I mean, all the challenges we had in, you know, after Prabhupada left, so many things happened, you know, until 1987 or like that. But we, like at the beginning in the 80s I came, and we are still here standing, you know. Many people just maybe left after whatever happened, you know. So we are still here, you know, trust Krishna. So I think
we should think it's all by Krishna's mercy.
Yeah, of course.
And yeah.
Yes, one thing.
Yes, of course.
So I think my current perception of devotees and Krishna consciousness is like more for like-minded people instead of friends. And I actually separate those two ideas, because to be a friend, it's like when Krishna played in Vrindavan as a kid, he had friends. So they really did a lot of nasty things. They were laughing about, like, did crazy stuff. But they kind of, that was real friendship. And with the devotees, it's more like everyone's so elated. You speak on specific topics. You don't, you know, intervene their aura or what it is. You see what I mean? So is it really possible to be a friend with a devotee in Krishna consciousness?
Well, I would say the key word here is maturity. Because, you know, among friends, we should also be able to disagree and still be friends. And you mentioned Krishna and the cowherd boys. What you said? They do nasty things.
Yeah, kind of.
And, externally, it may look like that. I mean, you're thinking when they were having mock fights and they were stealing each other's lunch bags and things like that. And I think it's even mentioned in the Krishna book that sometimes one boy, he would cry because the others were teasing him. But I don't. I have some memory like that. But what is the underlying? We have to see. This is all different rasas, and it's Krishna consciousness is not. It's not stereotyped. It's not boring. It's not, That's one reason also it said Vaishnava Kriya na Vigdi na Bujaya, something like that. You cannot understand the activities of an advanced devotee seen from an ordinary point of view. What sometimes on the surface may seem like, even maybe hostility or suffering, or it's actually, for those who really know, they know it's not like that. We read Nectar of Devotion, especially the second part. You will see that it's externally there's a lot of description of devotees suffering in the most terrible ways. Basically, they are suffering out of separation from Krishna. Sometimes devotees, they were almost on the verge of death. And so how horrible is that? But that's only from the material point of view, because we don't understand, that what is actually, what externally appears of suffering, it's actually the most highest ecstasy. Because you can understand it from this point of view, that why are the devotees suffering so much in separation from Krishna? Because they love him so much. They just, the gopis, they were lamenting, that they were cursing the Brahma because he had creating these eyelids that blink. So that meant that for, the split second it takes to blink the eyes, they couldn't see Krishna. So that separation made them so, distressed. So you can imagine the distress they felt when Krishna just left Vrindavan for good. How they could tolerate.
It felt like 12 years or something.
Lord Chaitanya is well, he says, Prabhupada says 12 years, but actually the verse says, Yuga itam nimeshena. It's like one yuga. I'm feeling, every moment feels like one yuga when a devotee is separated from Krishna. But it's not the suffering that the conditioned soul feels in this material world, because it's not suffering born out of frustrated material desires. It's suffering born out of love for Krishna. So what really makes one happy is when there is love. When there's, when you can, somebody who you can actually, who will accept your love and who will reciprocate your love. So how did Krishna reciprocate their love? By just leaving them. Well, he explains that to the gopis, and when he left them during the rasa dance, and they could not, they also couldn't understand. But Krishna came back, and he said, "This is actually my highest mercy when I left you, because you became so intensely attached to me." Even in the material world, there's a saying, separation makes the heart grow fonder. And that's, of course, the truth with modification, because, let us say boyfriend, girlfriend, if they are separated for a few days, a few weeks, yeah, they will become more, they will constantly meditate on the beloved and look forward to the time when they can meet again. But let us say they are separated for 20 years. They'll probably forget each other. In the material world, it's like that. There's a limit to it. When the spiritual world, there's no limit. When Krishna is apparently, when the devotee is apparently separated from Krishna, that increases their love for him many times. And it never stops. It never ends, because that's the difference between spiritual and material. And anyway, from that point of view, I think we can maybe understand. I mean, there is a side point, but an important point, I think. And yeah. After being around devotees for many years, I'm beginning to realize that there's a lot of variety. It's not, it's not that devotees, they only sit down and they learn Bhagavad Gita verses together, and that's all. Is, everything else than that is Maya. No, there's a lot of ways that we can associate together in Krishna consciousness. And when we develop, we start to discover. And, we are human beings, and becoming a devotee doesn't mean become a robot. We everything that people do outside of Krishna consciousness, we can also do here, but with Krishna in the center. And that makes the whole difference. How to do that? It takes time to understand, to come to that platform. We have to practice. Anyway, I have a suggestion. I don't know if you say. We end with a kirtan.
This is before Arctic now.
Huh? Oh, yeah. Okay, so then there will be kirtan.